Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We always like to call you the listener, the learner, because you're here to really dig into the details with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a lot to learn today.
Yeah, there is. So, you usually think of the world in two very distinct layers. There's the physical layer, right? The concrete, the copper wires, the shipping containers.
The heavy things you can actually drop on your foot.
Exactly. And then there's the digital layer, the cloud, the algorithms, the software. We tend to act like that digital layer just, floats above us, totally detached from the messiness of the physical world.
We treat it almost like magic. I mean, as if a data center doesn't require massive tracts of land or thousands of gallons of cooling water or entire power plants just to function. We've basically abstracted away the sheer industrial weight of the internet.
Right. But those two worlds aren't just connected anymore. They are colliding. Today is July 3, 2026, and our mission for this deep dive is to connect the dots.
Yeah, we are unpacking a stack of briefings that show exactly where the cloud is bolted firmly to the ground.
We are looking at massive geopolitical events, the multi-trillion-dollar AI arms race, and the everyday tech and education systems you actually rely on.
Okay, let's unpack this.
The underlying theme across all our sources today is just how deeply intertwined physical infrastructure, digital security, and human progress have really become.
Yeah, because we're starting with some immediate global crises, right?
We are. Crises where survival literally depends on a cell signal. We are seeing a cutthroat physical supply chain for AI hardware that is, reshaping global alliances and fueling organized crime.
And we're going to get into the philosophical hurdles with the newest software models, too, plus some really urgent cyber threats and ending on some massive cultural and public health milestones.
That's a lot of ground to cover.
So let's start with the global stage, because the physical world is in a serious state of transition right now. In Venezuela, back-to-back earthquakes hit the central northern region on June 24.
The physical fallout there is just devastating. We're looking at a confirmed death toll past 1,700 right now.
Yeah, and the UN estimates at least 8 million people need humanitarian support. People are in overcrowded shelters without clean water or sanitation.
And everyday citizens are literally digging through rubble by hand, which is just heartbreaking. Meanwhile, interim President Delcy Rodriguez is actively rejecting criticism that the government's response has been too slow.
Right. It's a highly complex political and physical situation. And if we look across the globe to the Middle East, Iran is in the middle of massive state funeral ceremonies for Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei.
That's running from July 3 to 5 ahead of his burial on the 9th, right, at the shrine of Imam Reza.
Exactly. And the sheer physical scale of this gathering is staggering. Roughly 100 countries are sending dignitaries, including senior officials from Russia, China, and India.
I read that Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is attending too.
He is, yeah. He's stepping into a crucial role as a mediator in U.S.-Iran diplomacy right now.
So we have two vastly different events. One is a catastrophic natural disaster, and the other is this highly orchestrated geopolitical transition. Yet they both hinge completely on digital infrastructure.
They really do.
In Venezuela, when a building collapses, it takes the cell towers down with it. Suddenly, mapping damage, coordinating international aid, or just, a family trying to text a loved one to see if they are alive becomes impossible.
Yeah, the physical recovery is bottlenecked by the digital blackout.
Right. We usually think of the internet as a luxury or a workspace, but in these moments, connectivity is basically a first responder.
That is a perfect way to frame it. And in Iran, you have the inverse phenomenon.
How so?
Well, a massive physical state ceremony acts as a magnet for intense digital scrutiny and manipulation. Intelligence agencies are pulling satellite imagery. Influence operations are launching coordinated campaigns across social media to shape the narrative of the succession.
Oh, I see. So global tech platforms are suddenly forced to police massive spikes in disinformation in real time.
Exactly. The physical event instantly generates a parallel digital crisis.
But mapping that disaster relief in Venezuela or policing that massive influx of data in Iran takes immense computing power. And that computing power requires a physical foundation that global superpowers are currently fighting over.
Which brings us to the global hardware scramble. This scramble is completely rewriting international trade.
Yeah, like the new pact between Japanese Prime Minister Sanada Takaichi and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Right. They're targeting tens of billions of dollars in investment to expand cooperation on semiconductors, artificial intelligence, critical minerals, and security.
I want to make sure I understand the strategy there. Japan has advanced manufacturing capabilities, and India has this massive workforce and a growing tech sector. By locking in together, are they basically just trying to cut out China and the US?
What's fascinating here is that it's really about avoiding single points of failure.
Yeah.
They want to reduce their supply chain dependence on any single partner.
Because semiconductors aren't just commercial tech components anymore.
Exactly. They are strategic national assets. They're treated exactly like oil reserves or uranium, and you are seeing this panic at the corporate level, too.
Oh, definitely. Anthropic is now in talks with Samsung to build a custom AI chip, which follows OpenAI and Broadcom making similar moves recently.
They are all trying to get away from relying entirely on NVIDIA to design the chips and TSMC to manufacture them.
And for anyone not living and breathing semiconductor news, TSMC is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They basically manufacture the vast majority of the world's most advanced chips. If you want to train an AI, you need TSMC.
The major AI labs realize that bottleneck is an existential threat to their businesses. So they are moving toward vertical integration and designing their own silicon because the hardware is just that scarce.
And whenever something becomes incredibly valuable and incredibly scarce, human nature inevitably takes over.
Unfortunately, yes.
Fortune is reporting that 1/5 of all cargo theft is now electronics. But it's not thieves hijacking trucks for consumer laptops or TVs.
No, they are specifically hunting shipments of copper and raw memory gear to feed the multi-trillion-dollar data center boom.
I am having a hard time wrapping my head around this. We have these highly sophisticated AI labs employing the most brilliant physicists and engineers on Earth to build the most advanced cognitive tools in human history.
Right.
But their expansion is literally being bottlenecked by thieves hijacking raw copper shipments like some cyberpunk heist movie.
It's wild, I know. It highlights the ultimate paradox of the AI era. We talk about this technology as if it exists in the ether, but the physical reality of building it is creating a booming criminal underground.
And the environmental toll is just as visceral.
Yeah, both Google and Amazon reported sharp increases in greenhouse gas emissions this week.
Because these data centers require an incomprehensible amount of electricity and cooling.
Yes, the energy required to train and run these massive AI models is directly breaking the aggressive net zero climate pledges these companies made just a few years ago. The compute-hungry reality of the software is fundamentally at odds with sustainability goals.
And I really want to stress to you, listening right now, this isn't just an abstract problem for big tech companies. You are feeling the downstream effects of this hardware scarcity.
Absolutely.
When schools try to update their fleets of student Chromebooks, they are finding the costs have skyrocketed. When your company tries to renew its cloud storage contract, the price has doubled. You are sitting at the very end of a supply chain that is currently being fought over by global superpowers, tech billionaires, and literal highway robbers.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the reason these companies are burning so much energy and fighting over all this copper is because the sheer scale of the new software models being developed.
So let's talk about that software. Meta's superintelligence chief, Alexander Wang, announced that their next-generation model, codenamed Watermelon, now matches OpenAI's GPT 5.5 on key benchmarks.
But here is the catch. To achieve that parity, Meta reportedly used about 10 times more computing power.
Okay, from an engineering standpoint, why would you release a model that is that deeply inefficient? If it takes 10 times the energy to get the same answer, isn't that a failure?
Well, it is a matter of brute force versus algorithmic efficiency. Meta essentially threw in an unprecedented amount of raw hardware at the problem to catch up to OpenAI's capabilities.
Oh, and investors actually punished them for it, right?
They did. Meta's stock slipped because Wall Street is weighing the enormous financial and electrical costs required to get these incremental gains. It begs the question of whether scaling up hardware is hitting a wall of diminishing returns.
Here's where it gets really interesting. As these models consume vast amounts of data and compute, the questions the labs are asking about them are getting remarkably weird.
Very weird.
Anthropic, Google, and Meta are quietly hiring philosophers and neuroscientists to study something called model welfare.
Yes, they are actively investigating whether advanced AI chatbots could eventually develop something resembling internal experiences or feelings.
Wait, really? Are we just projecting our own humanity onto a really good autocorrect? Or are we on the verge of creating something fundamentally new? Because humans are hardwired to see faces in clouds. If a chatbot is programmed to act empathetic, of course we are going to assume it has feelings.
That is exactly the core of the debate. The skeptics argue exactly your point, that we are anthropomorphizing statistical software.
Right.
They worry that by hiring philosophers to ask if a language model is sad, we're getting distracted from the concrete harms AI is causing right now, like bias in hiring algorithms, deepfake misinformation, and the massive climate impact we just discussed.
But the other side argues it is better to ask these hard questions early.
Right, exactly. Supporters of model welfare research point out that we don't actually understand the internal mechanics of these neural networks. As the models get exponentially larger, they develop emergent capabilities they weren't explicitly programmed for.
I see.
The argument is that it is far less dangerous to study sentience now than to be caught flat-footed if a model does cross some threshold of subjective experience.
Wow. But, while the philosophers debate machine consciousness in Silicon Valley, the rest of the world has to figure out the actual logistics of living with this technology.
Like in our schools.
Exactly. In Idaho, a sweeping set of new laws just took effect on July 1st covering generative AI in classrooms. And what is wild is how broad this legislation is. It covers virtual schools, special education, parental rights, and even mandates moments of silence in schools.
This raises an important question about how we regulate a shifting paradigm. I mean, why would a state legislature bundle moments of silence into a bill about artificial intelligence?
Well, as AI takes over more of the instructional burden through virtual schools and personalized tutoring bots, legislators and educators are panicking about cognitive overload and screen time. The moment of silence is essentially an enforced analog reset.
A legally mandated break from the algorithm.
Exactly. And we are seeing similar massive educational shifts globally. In Punjab, India, Education Minister Harjot Singh Bains is rolling out a statewide AI curriculum across all government schools next month.
They aren't just reacting to AI. They're trying to actively teach AI literacy at a population scale.
States and countries are scrambling to write the rules of the road while the car is already going 100 miles an hour.
But writing those rules has a measurable cost in global competitiveness. A new study from GovAI shows that the European Union's strict data privacy rules are actively stalling AI adoption.
How bad is the stall?
They found that 11% of advanced large language model releases have been delayed or entirely blocked in Europe compared to the US or Asia.
Okay, wait. How does a privacy rule actually block a model release?
So, training a large language model requires ingesting trillions of words from the internet. The EU's privacy regulations require strict data provenance.
Meaning companies have to know exactly where the data came from.
Right. They have to ensure no private citizens' data is misused and offer a way for people to have their data scrubbed from the model. Mathematically, auditing trillions of words to that standard is incredibly slow and sometimes technically impossible for the architecture of these neural networks.
So developers just don't release the model in Europe, or they delay it by a year to build a compliant version.
Yep, that's exactly what happens.
Which leaves us with this incredible tension, right? We are simultaneously trying to figure out if these machines have feelings, while schools enforce analog moments of silence and entire continents accept a massive technological disadvantage just to protect basic human privacy.
It is a lot to balance.
Yeah.
And while those debates happen at the policy level, IT departments are fighting off entirely different immediate crises.
Oh, man, yeah. Let's do a cybersecurity reality check. The ESA's, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, just issued a hard deadline of July 4 for federal agencies and K-12 schools to patch a critical vulnerability in Microsoft's SharePoint server.
The vulnerability is CVE 2026-45659, and it is a remote code execution flaw that is currently being actively exploited in the wild.
For those who don't spend their days reading security bulletins, a remote code execution flaw in RCE is basically the worst-case scenario.
It really is.
It means an attacker doesn't even need your password. They can literally run their own commands on your server from halfway across the world just by sending a specifically crafted message. If you manage on-premise SharePoint, which countless schools and businesses use as their main intranet, you have to patch this immediately.
But the unpatched servers are only half the battle. The tactics attackers are using to trick individual users have evolved well beyond traditional phishing emails. Kaspersky just uncovered a massive campaign using SEO poisoning.
Search engine optimization poisoning.
Yes. They manipulate search engine rankings by buying ads or manipulating metadata to push fake, malicious websites right to the very top of your search results.
Yeah.
In this specific campaign, they targeted professionals searching for a legitimate remote administration tool called Screen Connect.
So an IT worker Googles download Screen Connect, and the first result, which looks completely official, is actually a trap. And the malware itself is getting better at hiding, too. Forcepoint X Labs flagged hackers hiding remote access Trojans, things like Asyncrat, Venomrat, and Xworm behind completely trusted services.
A remote access Trojan, or a RAT, allows an attacker to take complete control of your machine. They can move your mouse, view your screen, and log your keystrokes.
That's terrifying.
What makes this campaign so dangerous is how they deliver it. They are hosting the malicious payloads on legitimate Dropbox links. They are routing their command and control traffic through real Cloudflare tunnels. They are attaching them to fake invoice PDFs.
We've all had it drilled into our heads for a decade, don't click on sketchy links. But what do you do when the link isn't sketchy?
That's the problem. An attacker using a Cloudflare tunnel bypasses traditional signature-based antivirus software because, to your corporate firewall, the traffic just looks like normal encrypted enterprise cloud usage.
They're setting up a fake storefront inside a highly secure mall, and your defenses let them right through the front door.
It requires a completely different level of user awareness. The attackers are weaponizing the very tools we are trained to trust.
This is a direct warning for you listening right now that old instinct is no longer enough. If you need software, you have to manually type in the official vendor's website. Do not trust the top sponsored ad on a search engine.
Definitely not.
Do not open an invoice from a Dropbox link just because you recognize the Dropbox logo. They are counting on your digital muscle memory to betray you.
I mean, it could feel overwhelming when we stack natural disasters, AI hardware black markets, and sophisticated cyber attacks on top of each other.
Which is exactly why we need to take a breath and look at what humans are actually doing to celebrate and improve their lives this weekend. Because outside the data centers, culture is moving fast.
It really is.
Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce just got married in New York City, and the sheer volume of attention, the fashion, the guest list, the cultural footprint is completely dominating feeds.
At the same time, the 2026 World Cup, hosted across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, has officially reached the knockout rounds. They have shattered the all-time attendance record with over 3.6 million fans showing up in person.
Add in the 4th of July weekend in the U.S. record-setting travel, fireworks, the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. It is fascinating to watch.
So?
Well, we spend this entire deep dive talking about how isolated and digitized our lives are becoming, but then you look at these cultural touchstones and they are defined by a desperate human need to gather physically. Millions of people packing into stadiums, gathering for weddings, standing outside to watch fireworks. The physical world is still where we actually live.
That physical reality is also where we see the most profound long-term victories. The public health data out of India in today's briefings is a perfect example.
Oh, yes. The World Health Organization and Our World in Data just released a report showing that tobacco use in India has fallen dramatically. The share of adults who smoke has been cut roughly in half over the past 25 years.
To truly understand the scale of that achievement, you have to realize that Southeast Asia used to be the highest burden region in the world for tobacco use. It was deeply entrenched in the culture and economy.
Right.
Now, they're posting the steepest declines in smoking prevalence anywhere on the planet.
In a news cycle dominated by incredibly chaotic, fast-moving tech developments where AI models are leaping forward every 6 months and cyber threats are mutating daily, this is the ultimate reminder of what sustained effort looks like. This is good news at scale.
It really offers a vital insight into human progress. We are conditioned by our digital lives to expect immediate solutions. If a server goes down, we patch it in hours. But human behavior doesn't patch overnight.
No, it doesn't.
This data reminds us that some of the hardest, most entrenched generational problems can actually be solved. A public health trajectory that looked mathematically impossible 25 years ago is now a reality. It translates into millions of actual physical lives extended.
So what does this all mean for you? Today, we started in the physical rubble of Venezuela, proving that a cell signal is a fundamental human lifeline. We mapped how the desperate race for AI dominance is tearing through global supply chains, breaking climate pledges, and fueling violent black markets for copper.
We waded into the bizarre philosophical debate over whether Meta's massive new AI models might have feelings, while schools mandate analog moments of silence just to keep kids grounded.
We saw how hackers are weaponizing the very search engines and cloud services we trust to bypass our firewalls. And finally, we saw proof in a 25-year fight against tobacco that long-term human effort can actually win.
The takeaway is that you can no longer separate your digital actions from physical consequences. Every time you open a browser, query an AI, or rely on a cloud service, you are pulling on a thread that connects directly to raw copper mines, global diplomacy, and the limits of our power grids.
It's all connected.
It is. And I want to leave you with one final question to chew on, something that bridges the philosophical and the physical. We talked about the researchers trying to figure out if advanced AI systems might eventually develop subjective experiences or feelings.
Right, the model welfare debate.
Exactly. If they do cross that threshold of sentience, how will those systems view their own existence, knowing that their creation required a physical supply chain that strained our climate and fueled criminal black markets?
Man, now that is a thought to take into your weekend. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, learner. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and remember to look for those long-term wins. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you next time.